Sooner we start.
Wife said I should wear swim trunks.
Well, good evening. It is September the 18th. It is September's Finance Committee. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Grumney,
Here.
Mr. Martin,
Here.
Mr. Neff.
Here.
Mayor St. John,
Here.
Ms. Strayer. Here. Mr. Capel.
Here.
And Mrs. Cooper is absent. 6 minutes.
Yes, Ms. Cooper had indicated she would not be at the Finance Committee this evening. We have the minutes before us from our August 21st, 2024 meeting. Looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Ms. Strayer. Yes. Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Capel.
Abstain.
5 yeas.
Okay, we're on the new and unfinished business. I think it looks like we have a demo right off the bat. So you're off and running.
How are you guys doing today? I am going to kind of briefly walk through OpenGov. So more or less, it's going to be a lot of me talking. We haven't received any permits on it yet, so I won't be able to go in and show you exactly what it looks like, but I am going to open up one of the applications, kind of walk through the residential portion of it, and then go into like the commercial and industrial site plan just a little bit. That one's a little more intense, so there's going to be a lot of stuff in there you won't understand, but just so you can kind of see exactly what we can do with it there. All right. So just starting off like on the sunburyohio.org. So if you type it in, this is where you'll end up. Once you go over to our zoning page, I've updated our applications down over here. So all of our online forms here will now lead you directly to all of the permits on OpenGov. So all of these ones are the ones that we currently have. I'm actively updating all of our other permits, kind of going through our backlog permits that aren't typically applied for and posting those on there as well, like such as demolition permit. We've had one since I've been here, but if it's on there, then people will probably use it rather than either just demolishing or not knowing that we have a permit for it. So just making it visible, I think, is going to be beneficial by itself. But if you click view all applications, it'll lead you to the OpenGov portal, which opens up all of our current permits and certificates on here, and then includes code violations as well. So we'll just jump right into residential zoning certificate. So with this one, this will be for like decks, additions, pools, like anything in residential form, no commercial or that here. But so it'll automatically input all of that information. Skip over. All of this information is based on my account up here. So to do any kind of applications, you do have to log in. But once you do that, all of your applications will be stored, one, to your account, and then two, on our server on OpenGov's website as well. So with that, you can go back in and double check on your own permits. You can reprint off all the permits and certificates that you have yourself. So there's going to be a lot less of people calling and saying, hey, I need this permit. Or even once I issue a permit, it'll just automatically update them and send it to their email rather than having to keep jumping through hoops or me reaching out to them and saying, here's a permit, or even little portions that you're missing. Like if there's part of the application that's not in here, it either won't let you proceed or it'll notify whoever's reviewing that application to proceed with it. So it's just 59. Oh, I could talk about it all day. Is it 59 East Cherry? Is this building right?
51.
51. You see. So we will just load that up. And so it'll automatically take you to, it loads it in. So now it's synced up to our map, which will also be included on here. So once we actually have permits in, so no one's applied or gotten a permit through OpenGov yet, so I can't show you that. But once applied for, you can go onto a city map and it'll show you where permits are. That can be restricted based on what we want to show them. If we just want to say, hey, this permit's here for this reason, we can do that. If we want to give them more information on what exactly it is, there's limitations on what exactly we can show the public and what we on the administrative side can see as well. So Amber, I'm just going to use your information since it's all right here, and I'm not going to submit this application, so you won't have to worry about receiving anything. And then another cool feature that I personally like about OpenGov is that there are a lot of these questions can open up more questions. So for example, if I click, I have a contractor, one of the next steps is going to ask for the information of that contractor. Same with the architect, same with the engineer. So no matter what you're doing, you are getting asked questions based on what you're applying for, not just generally based on everything, kind of how our current applications are. Now, and then in addition, if I click, this is for the property owner, it'll automatically transfer the property owner information over to the applicant information and not require a separate person to apply as well. So I'm just going to keep writing all of this information to go through this quickly. We'll do the architect so it pops up. And this is not the parcel number, and this is not going to be the subdivision or the acreage, but just so we can get through this as quickly as possible. So it loaded up architect company name and contact information and all this as well. So same idea, but just so you guys can kind of get to know, like it will populate different pieces of this application based on what is chosen. And this will we'll get a little more, or I'll describe it a little better once I'm kind of done running through exactly what this application looks like here. So project information is, as I was saying, like loading up the individual questions. If you choose solar panels, it's going to ask you how many panels, where the panels are located. If you choose new construction, it's going to ask you different questions geared towards what exactly it'll be. So new construction is mainly going to be for our Pulte's, our Rockford Homes, our big subdivisions. They submit these applications for new houses on individual parcels. So they would be filling out all of this information, and all of this information is the same as it would be on our typical applications and what they already know and what they're already used to. And then such as if you click alteration, it'll load up here, or deck, it'll load up specific deck questions and things like that. And then if you are a part of an HOA, you can click yes here. An additional function we have is on specific property addresses. If they're located in an HOA, based on our map, we already know the subdivisions that they are. So it'll tell us on the back end too, if it thinks they're in an HOA. So even if they click no on HOA and we have that notification, or if we just know, we can also request that information from them on the back end or after they apply as well. So we'll just throw in numbers. Yeah. Oh. All right, and then it'll ask for a signature, which you will just type. And then after that, it'll require attachments as well. So it won't let you proceed after this point or submit your application until these are in. So such as this one right here, we said we were in an HOA, so we need an HOA approval letter submitted before the application can even be reviewed. And we'll need a plot or site plan for the deck showing exactly where it is. So all the requirements that we require in attachments that aren't the actual application will be submitted with the document as well. So once this is, you can't proceed without it. You have to upload things in. This is the last step here. So I am not going to save the draft. I'm just going to go back and delete all this. But just to kind of give you an example of what it looks like. After this goes through, it'll send a email to whoever we have as the reviewer of this. So that could be limited to just me. If we hire more people who would be reviewing, it could be any number of people and randomly assigned based on who's available. So if it says, like if my account has 4 or 5 projects open and like Alyssa's account has 1 or 2, it would assign it to Alyssa just because she has less she's reviewing currently. And then let me see here. Okay, so that is all for the application portion. In addition to that, if we go back to the home page here, back to the planning and zoning portion of it, there is this portion at the bottom where you can search for records as well. So this would be where you can go in, and if I submitted that record that got approved, you can go in here and look for it. And as I said before, it's limited to the information we want them to see. So we can keep it as general as we want, more specific. And then in addition, it'll appear on a map too, once you load up an address. So if you could like look up just deck permits in general, it could show all the deck permits on the map once we actually have those. And then kind of just other notes that I wanted to go over. Our current process, the reason I love OpenGov and can ramble on it all day is because our current process is most of it's not automated. Most of it goes directly through me. So I am the one who gets the applications in email. I get them online, get them in person. If they're incomplete, I'm reaching out to the applicant and saying, hey, I need this information. With OpenGov, we can kind of cut that process out. they're not allowed to finish the application until everything's filled in. So they'll have to reach out and say, hey, I have this question. Or even if they fill out the application and it's an incomplete answer, like they did what I just did and type one in a bunch of times, I can go in once I have access to the application, flag that answer and say, hey, I need an actual number. Hey, I need whatever information they're lacking there. In addition to that, once I review the application, I can click it to the next step, which would be payment. So if I go in and I review this application, everything looks good, I can click approve. The applicant then will get a notification to come in and pay. Once they pay, I've already approved it, so they can get access to the certificate. It'll generate it on its own. They can print it off. They can email it to themselves. They'll have that access and it'll automatically populate within our records as well. So then I don't have to go back in, double check that everything's right, double check that they paid, and then issue the certificate. So it cuts out multiple steps within that process as well. And then in addition to that, right now, most of our permits are stored just within a folder within our online drive. If somebody, like, we can get record requests, we can go in and fill that out. So this opens up records being stored online in a public portal. So if people want the records, they can either go in and check them, or if they could still stop into the office, and that option's still available, but it just makes it easier for them to access that right at their fingertips if they go to our website, rather than having to jump through a few hoops to get those.
Once somebody hits submit, can they go back in and edit what they've submitted?
Yes.
And
Yes.
how do you know that happened then to check it?
If it is, so if I go in, if they submit the application and I review it and then they edit it, it'll send me a notification saying
Okay.
what's been changed in my review process, assuming I haven't already approved it. If I've already approved it, then they can't go back and edit it. And if they do, they'd have to reach out to me to get, like, we'd have to go back a step within the process itself. So if it's approved, we're jumping to like the payment portion. They can't manually go back to the application portion. So they'd have to reach out and let me know, hey, I typed something in wrong, or I need to revise that. And then I can kick it back to the other step for them if they want. So with that, another one of the major reasons that we wanted to look into permitting software like this is looking specifically at our commercial and industrial site plans. We have a lot of them, and it's hard to keep track, especially with a team as small as ours. Once we're getting sent so many plans, like, plans get revised pretty frequently. So making sure we're looking at the right plans and issuing permits based on the right plans is kind of a big deal with OpenGov. Once they go through that online process, like, if they update the plans later, or say it gets kicked to our engineer and they review the plans, they can put the new submitted plan, the revised version, it'll automatically update to the most current plan, but you can go back and check through all the old plans too. So if we wanted to review old plans, see what was changed, we can go in and check that. So rather than looking for small details, we can see, hey, this is the most current, this is what they did, check our own engineering notes all within this same platform and double check to see what has been changed, if it's been changed, and if we can approve it now based on that. And then in addition to that, with commercial and industrial site plans, prior to now, like, reaching out for impact fees, sewer tap fees, things like that, it's kind of a back and forth game with everybody who applies. So, like, we can send out invoices and it'll have everything listed out. Well, we make up the invoices, send them out, and then they review them, complain about the fees, and then we discuss that. And then we go back and they eventually pay that. So with this, they can't move forward in that process until they pay those fees. The fees will automatically be generated based on all of what they submitted. So square footage is a pretty big indicator for all of our commercial and industrial site plans. Whatever square footage they put in there, it can automatically populate our impact fees, just fees in general based on that. So, and that goes with, for our bigger residential, our apartments, impact fees are worked up based on units for that. It goes the same way for that. So if they enter in a certain number of units, it can calculate all the impact fees for them. Once it's approved on our end through myself or whoever is doing the site plan review, they can get to that fee portion and be able to pay that and see the breakdown of what all the fees are and pay it via card, check, however they want to pay it. But it's an automated step at that point. So we're not going back and forth with the fees. Everything's broken down for them. And if they do have any complaints about it, it's easier for us to say, well, that's this line item. That's exactly what it is. It's calculated based on this ordinance that we have already approved, and we know that. So with that, I believe that is all I have. Any questions about any of the process here?
I just have a couple, Alex. Thank you. Great presentation. This is a cool tool. This is nice to have, probably about a couple years too late, but it's nice to have it now. So that's awesome. With regard to data entry, is there anything that does a real-time error? So if I ask for a number of acres and I put A, I mean, will it say numeric needed or?
Yes, so it depends on exactly what the question is, but for any field that would need a number, we have put that it needs a number in there. So you wouldn't be able to enter A.
Okay,
If they did enter like something that just seems ridiculous, like you put in 1,000,000 acres,
Yeah, yeah.
that would go through, but that's
Okay.
something that we would catch on that initial review. And then I can go back in, flag that question specifically and say, I need real
Yeah.
acreage amount on this question.
awesome. Okay. And is there, and I don't know if this is possible, is there any room to put like an FAQ? Like if.
Yeah, so we could put that, there's a few places we could put it. I can go back to this here. So like once you select residential zoning certificate, for instance, this whole white space here can be a detailed, it could be any text we want. I'm still working out exactly what I want that to say for all of the applications,
Yeah,
but that is what I was going to put in there. Is like phone numbers for contact information or frequently asked questions for even this website as a whole, or just having a separate page within our planning and zoning section of our site that
Okay.
says a little bit how to use it. But
okay,
that's the intention, especially while we're first kind of getting this under our feet.
Yeah.
I know there will be questions on this application.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
everyone's going to be fluent with it, but just pushing them to either kind of push their way through or reach out when they have a question, just so we can kind of get the ball rolling there.
that's great. I haven't built a deck 12 years ago. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do but this will be great. This is awesome.
And that was the other thing that I hadn't thought of really till today, but just seeing all of the applications listed on the website, there's
Yeah.
things that people didn't know. Somebody asked me
Right.
if they needed a permit for a pole barn yesterday.
Yeah,
So like that kind of question,
Yeah.
like you definitely need a permit for a pole barn, but being able to go on the website and see it on the front page, I think is
Yeah.
going to be more helpful than not.
for sure. Any other questions for Alice? Yeah.
Just, for example, the deck, if someone was building a deck or a permit for a home, does it say like the setbacks or anything like?
It does not. So that would be within our zoning review. So it depends on the zoning for each specific area.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I think we would be able to put that in there potentially. I can't guarantee it now, but I do think that it would be doing a lot of checks on itself. And I don't know if I'd be 100% comfortable with it checking all of our zonings in that. Like if it gave the approval for setbacks, I don't know if I'd be confident in just saying, all right, well, the website said so you're good to go. So I'd feel more comfortable doing it myself, but at some point I'm sure we could have OpenGov do that because there's a lot of if this, then that related questions on the site. So you could potentially put in setbacks specifically on there too. But I think a lot of that also has to do with the plan they submit, because we're going to be looking at that. So they would have to input like the side setback, like if they're building a garage, the side setback on each side of that garage, which I think could also be easily manipulated if they wanted to. They could put the setback at the distance it was, and then we would have to double check it anyway. So
this is a real time saver.
Yeah.
The other question I had was, who can look at somebody else's project?
So it depends, if it's approved, anybody can look at the materials, everything. It depends on what we want, more or less. So we can have it as open as we want or as closed. We can have it just say permit number this for a deck at this address, which I think is what it's set to currently, not going into too many details. If people want that full application or material submitted, it's public record, they can call and ask for it specifically, or we can have an option for it on the website as well.
I don't know if I'd want my neighbors knowing all my information about my deck and how big it is and where the studs are.
Yeah. And they wouldn't necessarily know that based on this. This would just say, hey, a deck permit was issued at
Okay.
your address. So there'd be the permit number on there, the address, and then what the permit was for. And I think if we wanted to, we could take what the permit was for off as well. But it just depends exactly. It's probably a different conversation, what we want to have the public be able to see. Once we start getting a lot of applications in here, people will start using that map and using those tools to see what permits were issued. And then I think it just becomes how much of our hand do we want to show before they reach out and ask?
I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I don't want someone planting a bomb in my, or a camera in my deck, knowing exactly what.
Yeah.
So the zoning or the permits will be listed. When I see code violations,
Yes.
Will those be listed as well, or?
Those will not be on the map, no. So there will be an internal map that I will be able to see for code violation, well, for everything, but I could sort it by code violation. So that'll be more an internal tool that we'll use just to see, like, if I go out and want to look at all the code violations that have been reported in a week, we can have them all located on a map and then be able to just go around and see them. And then with that one, I can go into this one too. But I think for this one, yeah, this one you can choose a little bit different. You can just put it on a point. You can add an address specifically if you want, or even if, I mean, some people use our code violation currently to report like segments of road that they don't like, or segments they see something in the road. So it could be, I mean, anything on there that they want to report, they can. And then it'll be whoever it's kicked to in that second stage to review. You can go through their paragraph, and then all of our, typical zoning code violations are within there in a drop-down menu. So once I see if they're saying a car is parked in the front yard, I can go in there, review it. If I go and see that the car is parked in the front yard, I just have to drop down to that specific code violation or code number, and then it'll automatically generate a violation warning that I can just print off and send over.
Any other questions?
Good job, Alex.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem.
All right, I think that takes us to is it another presentation or just a discussion on software?
This is just a discussion.
Okay,
Turn the volume up just slightly.
Sure. I don't know how to do that.
sounds.
You guys.
Thank you.
no.
Yep. Check. Is that better?
Yeah, it's good.
Excellent.
you.
Okay. ClearGov, not to be confused with OpenGov. This is a completely different company. ClearGov reached out to me a few weeks ago, and I wasn't screening my phone calls as well as I normally do. So had to sit through a demo. I really liked the demo. And when I saw the pricing, I thought it was a great opportunity, and I wanted to gauge Finance Committee and Council's interest on this. So I will just give a brief summary of what I saw and gauge your interest and see if it's something that you would like to pursue. So ClearGov, they are a company who provides budgeting software, operational budgeting, personnel budgeting, capital, and they also have a digital budget book. And the digital budget book would be more for cities who are doing gap accounting, which we will be doing next year. And for those cities that are submitting a full CAFR, which I don't know if we probably wouldn't do that right off the bat, but it could be something in the future that we could look into where a budget book would be helpful. As I'm going through our current budgeting process, everything is in Excel, and I have multiple Excel spreadsheets, multiple tabs on all these spreadsheets. Sometimes formulas get a little bit askew, or something needs to change, and that change doesn't follow through every spreadsheet, and the end result is the number is wrong, and I may not necessarily catch that. So getting away from Excel would be the ideal situation for budgeting in the future. Currently, right now, I don't have a problem with the way we're doing our budgeting. It's working well. But as we grow, this could be something that we may want to look into. So for operational and capital budgeting, I'll kind of lump those two in together. This is all a cloud-based system, so anyone could access it within the city. So if the Director of Engineering wants to put in a budget request for a certain capital item, she could do that through the cloud-based system. And anyone who we would give access to the system could see the budget requests, capital item requests, etc. With the personnel budgeting, I could see this being very helpful with, what type of overall increase in wages we want to provide for employees. It also has calculations for healthcare, and a lot of it's very robust and would really help us with our budgeting. So there's a whole 40-page document that I parsed down to just give you just the important pieces, which is what's in your packet. So it talks about the operational budgeting and the capital budgeting and the personnel and the budget book. So skipping over, that was a very, very brief overview, but skipping all the way to the back of this presentation here, we come to the service order. It looks like this. Page 19, thank you. Page 19 of your packet. So with the 4 bundled pieces with the operational, personnel, capital, and digital budget book, it's going to be $11,000 a year. And that price was given to us based on our general fund budget. And as you can see, the individual pieces are much higher. If you were to just get the operational budgeting piece, that's $9,600. You could get the whole package. We could get the whole package for $11,000 a year. I thought that was a really great price for what we would get. So that's why I'm bringing it to you today. So just wanted to get your input and feedback on if that's something that you would like to pursue, or if you'd like me to do a more robust demo on this, I'm more than happy to do that. This isn't something that I wanted to necessarily put in the budget for 2025, but just wanted to get your feedback.
So will you be telling them that we're now the city of Sunbury
Yeah,
rather than the village of Sunbury?
they do
And
have
that we're
village up there.
actually
Yeah,
Sunbury, Ohio, not Sandbury, Ohio?
I
That we're
noticed
lying
that
down?
too. Yes. I think he was putting this together pretty quickly for me, so made some little mistakes there.
Are there other municipalities in the area using this?
Yes, I want to say Hilliard uses it. There was a page, sorry. So on page 17, you've got Riverside, Ohio, Dublin, Ohio, Loveland, Clayton, Powell, and Hilliard. Those are some examples of cities that use this budgeting software. Also, I didn't mention it before, but council members could log into this system and look at the budget and do more of a analysis yourself on what's changing in the proposed budget from last year. You could look at all the capital items and the details behind those capital requests. So it would provide much more visibility and transparency on all these numbers to council. So
Residents able to look at that?
residents, probably not. I'm not exactly sure.
I didn't
The
hear
budget-
what that question was. Could you talk into your mic?
I asked if the residents could look at this, if our financial is public information.
I didn't ask the question. I don't recall if that was discussed, but I will ask and find out. I imagine since it is public information, at least the budget book, if we did publish that, that would certainly be visible and we could post that on our website. But as far as the operational and capital and all the details that go into those pieces of the budget, I'm not sure that they would be readily available to the public as far as so they could look at all the details. I'm sure we could publish some reports from that system for the public to see at the very least.
And I agree that on the surface, that cost looks very reasonable. Do you have any idea? And if you don't, that's fine, but comparing to other vendors, is that good? Or is there something that's $8,000 or is it typically $20,000 a year for something like this?
Yeah, I haven't done that due diligence yet at this point.
Yeah,
I just saw that number and I thought, wow, that's a steal. So
right.
let me,
It seems good. I just don't know about budgeting software, if that's the norm or
Right.
if that's, yeah. And then I see, it looks like it's for a 2-year term, the $11,000 a year, starting, I think, January 25 through December 31st of 27.
Mhm.
So, do they guarantee any type of, price, maybe as far as price increase? Cause I'm afraid that
yes.
we get all invested in this for $11,000, 2 years later, it's $25,000.
Yes, there is in the initial period at the bottom of that billing terms,
Yeah.
it shows a 3% increase per year.
Okay.
So yes, it would increase, the cost of it would increase per year by 3%. And then after that, after the initial service period, it would go up by 6%. And after that initial service period, we wouldn't be under any obligation to continue with it if we didn't want to. So.
I'd just be curious comparison wise, just and it probably is a great deal, but I just didn't know what the standard is.
Yes, thank you. I should
Yeah.
have thought of that.
No, that's fine.
Seems very reasonably priced for, I mean, making the data intuitive and. I mean, I've been part of those back and forths with spreadsheets and capital requests and. Yeah, one formula off and. That's pretty tough.
Yeah, it is tough. Okay, well, thank you for, I guess, indulging me in that little presentation. I just wanted to get your input, and I'll be happy to do some comparisons and we'll go from there.
So, thank you.
One more question on
Yep.
that. What happens if take the 6% after the service, what happens if we choose to no longer work with them? Like, what happens to all of our information? Do we get it all put to another portal? I mean, is there some sort of termination?
Great question. I don't know the answer to that, but I can find out. I will ask.
Well, thank you very much for that. It sounds like another handy tool to help us, we're lean and mean on staff, and this is something that would help tremendously, it looks like, so.
Okay.
Okay, it looks like we're able to, ready to move on to the, second review of the 2025 draft budget.
Yes. So this will start on page 22 of your packet. Really, if we jump to page 23 of your packet, that's going to be your consolidated budget overview, the sheet that you are hopefully familiar with at this point, looking at every fund from the general fund all the way down to the newly established Mayor's Court Fund 902. I won't bore you with the details there. The next page goes through the estimated revenues. Since last time, I don't believe there's been much of an adjustment to this page besides the sewer fund. We added 2 million of the 4 million that we will get over a period of 2 years. We added 2 million for 2025, and the other 2 million will be added in 2026's revenue budget.
Steven, real quick on page 23 with the COVID fund, I know there's a time limit that we have to use those funds, and looks like we're using almost everything except for, forgive my eyes, is that 15?
Mhm.
Yeah, will that still be available, or do we lose that?
No, it'll still be available. We just have to spend it by the end of 2025, I believe it is, or 2026. 26.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, thank you.
It has to be declared by
Yes.
this year, and then we have 2 years
Use
after.
it by, okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Did it go toward Smith Park?
That's what it is budgeted for, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay, and then on the next few pages, we have the category appropriations. This is all of the appropriations by category for starting with the general fund, and it goes by department, then through all the other funds. And I just have the 2025 numbers on here. Next time I will be adding some percentage and change increases or decreases, or just the changes from the prior year, so that we can do a little more of a comparison to see where things are changing. But just to give you, well, I guess the next thing I'll go through is the capital items. And the capital items is on page, I think, 22 of your packet. Thank you. It's on page 22 of your packet. And it's the colorful page. It says capital items for 2025 budget. And it's color coded by department. It looks like this. Thing there. Color coded by department. So we have the police department first.
22.
As you can see, some of the larger items there, we have budgeted furnishings at the new building at 100,000. A new cruiser for 80,000 is budgeted here. And then some other minor items all listed. Next, in the administration section, the largest item there is the 300,000 for lower level improvements. That's lower level of the admin building where the police department previously were housed. We also have 100,000 for additional new furnishings and 150 for new equipment. We also have a city vehicle currently in the budget. And Some town hall plumbing repairs, much needed for this building. Some security for the admin building, such as scanners to get through the front door, buzzing so that the administrative staff doesn't have to constantly get up from their seat and let people in the door. We're hoping to stick a little buzzer in there to unlock the door. Some better security here for town hall is in there. We also have a zoning code update, a revenue cost analysis, and some cybersecurity upgrades in there. Going down to services, we've got the $1 million for the general street repairs, which has been in our budget for the past several years. Larger items here include the East Granville Street project at $800,000. And that-
Real quick on the street repairs, that is a significant increase though. We haven't budgeted $1 million in previous years, right? I'd requested that, but I don't want folks to think that we've been budgeting $1 million
Right.
in previous years. Like we've budgeted around 600,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say 6 or 7 with 300,000 in OPWC funding. So yeah, this is definitely an increase from what's been in the budget in the past. So yeah, this is all general or all capital money.
And we're still playing
Must.
catch up. So I think we're doing the right thing. I
Yeah.
mean, for the past 4 or 5 years, we've increased it significantly. So good job, council.
Also included here, the East Granville Street project at $800,000. And of course, you all know that has an income or a grant portion to it as well. The parking lot at Columbus and East Granville Street budgeted here at $700,000. A maintenance van for $50,000, a batwing mower attachment for $55,000, and then some other general, a vacuum trailer, storm line repairs, auxiliary pump, smaller items there.
But you do see in here a new plow truck, so service truck / plow truck. So I know we've been talking a little bit about how we'll be adding additional streets soon. So now you're seeing just one of the, consequences of that. And we've talked about this for a while, but now you're actually seeing, I think, the full amount in the budget. So
Moving over to the right-hand column, Parks and Rec is in the green section. We have the J.R. Smith Park renovations, 2 lines there just because they're from different departments or different funds. So I separated them out. We also have money appropriated for a joint rec district study, some money for aerators in the reservoirs, Fallen Heroes handrails, and some unassigned capital. In the cemetery section, we have memorial building repairs. This was estimated between 40 and 100,000. So this 100,000 is definitely the high end. Wouldn't necessarily spend that amount, but that would be the placeholder for that. Guardrail repair and the niche wall repair is included as well. And in the sewer fund, we have the wastewater treatment plant expansion, that 18.5 million, which is the significant driver of this entire just under $24 million capital budget. Also, some sewer lining at $350,000, and that's been an ongoing item that we've been adding to the budget. We haven't always used that full amount every year, but it's been in the budget in case it's necessary. Also, a pump repair and replacement at $100,000, a sewer camera, and a service truck.
I've got a question. Okay. On services, the East Granville Street project, I thought that included the parking lot, so it does not.
So the East Granville project that's referenced here is the widening of 37, State Route 37. So then the parking lot is this parking lot up here in this corner. They do also, yeah. I mean, I could see the confusion there. The $800,000 represents the city's contribution to that project. As Ms. Stefan indicated, I mean, there's a $4 million grant in there from the federal government, $1 million in there from the local government, or 1.25 at the state level. So yeah, there's a lot more than just that in for the widening of that program.
And technically, that parking lot is on West Granville Street, not East Granville Street.
Thank you.
Is Columbus Street the divider?
Yeah.
Ah, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on that part? All right.
That's all I had to go over as far as the budget is concerned. So before I move on, are there any other questions about about the budget? Or if you would like to see something presented in a different way? For example, Mr. Grumney had asked earlier before the meeting started if I would show some percentage changes from year to year. If there's anything else on those lines that you would like me to present differently for next time, I'm happy to do so.
Did you all think about metal detectors going into the new municipal?
Hasn't been discussed with me.
Well, so I won't go through all the safety improvements, but we have substantially improved the safety of the entranceway. So one, you've got a locked door. We didn't have that before. We've got bullet resistant windows right there for the staff, and also the drywall as well. So it's a lot more secure in the lobby. So and no one can enter until, unless an employee lets them into the space, as Ms. Steffen indicated. So I mean, we don't have metal detectors, but we've got significant enhancements over what we had before.
Does that move us to the year-to-date comparison reports?
Yes, it does.
All right.
All right. So these are the same reports you've seen. This is through month 8, so through August. Looking at the revenue, this is page 29 of your packet. I will just go through a few items here of note. The very top line, real estate property tax. We have received all of the tax money from the county that we will receive this year, and we're up by about $115,000 roughly, $110,000 roughly from what we budgeted. So that's good news. On the income tax, as you can see, we've budgeted 4.8 million. We're at 3.6 through August. Annualized, that'll get us to about 5.4 million at the end of the year. Going down about 80% of the page, miscellaneous reimbursements. We budgeted 25,000. We received 35,892. A big portion of that is the grant that we received from the Ohio Department of Development for $30,500 for the South Columbus Street demolitions. Finally, at the bottom of this page, donations and gifts. $10,000 was received as a gift to the police department from the Eagles. So I wanted to point that out.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
On the next page, a few items, all the impact fees, I want to briefly comment on those. Impact fees for police, municipal building, roads, and parks and rec. These are all, we've received more than what we've budgeted for at this point. And this is largely due to a $300,000 payment that we received from Romanelli for the Commerce Park apartments. So that's driving that increase. On the next page, at the very top, state highway license and permissive tax. We budgeted 10,000. We received 30,785. Annualized, that will get us to about $46,000 a year. And then down in the sewer fund, I just want to comment on the sewer taps. We received much more than we've budgeted at this point, largely due to Romanelli again paying sewer tap fees for the Commerce Park apartments. That check that we received was about $726,000. So that's going into those sewer tap funds. All good things to help us build our plant. And then at the bottom, we have pass-through income. We budgeted 200,000. We received 243, and we are expecting more to come in before the end of the year as Alex is sending out more invoices for engineering pass-throughs. We're expecting more from Hitachi, and I know I think Huntington Bank will owe us some more money as well, as far as some of those other projects we have going on. So that leads me into, I wanted to briefly mention that at the next council meeting, I will most likely be bringing another appropriation increase to council to see if we can get that approved. And pass-through income is something that will need to increase. Pass-through, of course, is not necessarily an out-of-pocket expense. It's not an out-of-pocket expense for us because we get the money from the developer and then we just pass it through to the engineers. But we're also going to have to increase an appropriation for the new mayor's court fund that I established with booking the journal entries for the mayor's court fees. We don't have any money budgeted there, so technically the auditor of state wants to make sure that council is aware that these appropriations are being approved through the proper channels and that we're going through all those proper steps. So that'll need to be increased as well. And there's a few other items that I'll be asking for, specifically police cruiser repairs. Well, we can just move on to the next page and we'll talk about those. Going on to expenses. So this will be page 33. Is that right? 32 of your packet, 32. Cruiser repair is highlighted in yellow. As you can see, we're at $12,985 through August. We had a large bill come in September, so we're already beating that 17,000. We're going to need to increase that as costs for repairing our police vehicles is on the rise. The second yellow on that same page, the contractual services for admin. We budgeted initially $789,000. We've increased it twice so far by 140 and then 150. So right now we are 75% spent on that. And I know we have more engineering bills to pay, more legal fees to pay. It's not going to get us through the end of the year at that amount. So I unfortunately will have to put in an appropriation increase or not pay our vendors. So. All right. Everything else besides, we can go to the last page here of the year-to-date current expense report. That's going to be page 36 of your packet. Thank you, Amber. On page 36 of your packet, for the sewer plant, the very top highlighted yellow section there, we appropriated 130,000. We're already at 116,000. Annualized, I expect to pay 174,000 for the year, and that's largely due to rising costs in electricity. AEP has just been skyrocketing for our sewer plant electricity. So I expect that we will need to increase that by roughly $44,000 to get us through the end of the year.
Is that really AEP? I thought we had city aggregation for the plant. Is that not right?
AEP bills.
So we have city aggregation, but
Right.
there's a different contract for the commercial, or I'm sorry, for the sewer plant. So we go back and look at that a little bit more closely, but I don't think it's not tied to the aggregation rate. It's tied to another contract that we have with them. So, I suspect some of this is driven by, electric usage as well, but we'll get more detail.
Yeah, and everything else is just par for the course, or I've already mentioned it in the past. So, yeah, and that was everything that I wanted to mention for the appropriation increase that I'll be bringing to council in the near future.
Thank you very much. Any last questions from Ms. Stefan on the comparison reports?
I just wanted to mention one thing on the police cruiser repair. The chief, deputy chief, Ms. Stefan, myself have been talking about, and you've probably heard it in the police report, that we're evaluating a lease program for vehicles. What we're finding is, many of our police vehicles are, running 80, 90,000. It's not uncommon that we're taking a vehicle or two in a month and it's $5,000 to remove the engine and put it back in, and it's like a $10 part, but it's very expensive to maintain the higher mileage vehicles. We're still trying to figure out the right balance with upfitting and how that works with the lease program and the turn back in and the mileage, but I can tell you our expense related to repairs will significantly go down. And we don't take the large capital hit up front. So we're budgeting for a vehicle, but we're also looking at different ways to slice this budget to make it most.
How does that work for a police vehicle that gets outfitted and stuff to return? Are you talking about like an actual physical cruiser leasing that and then you just strip it all down and when you turn it back in?
Yeah, that's probably the most complicated part of this
Right.
analysis is some of the lease programs are done through the actual manufacturer, some are through a third party.
Yeah.
And then you have to calculate, some come upfitted to a certain degree, and then other ones you're doing a full upfit. And eventually, we're gonna be calculating depreciation on these items as well, especially if you're purchasing upfront on a vehicle that you're gonna turn back in. It's more complicated in the government world than it is probably for the private sector.
Sure.
And you brought up a really good example that we're trying to figure out how to address.
Very good. Okay, cool. All right, well, thank you. And I think in the interest of time, we'll just move right on to the bank to book reconciliation and the check register.
There isn't much for me to point out here. You can see the bank to book reconciliation on the next page of your packet, on your agenda, actually. We've got $21 million in assets. Outstanding checks were $279,000. Variance is $22,000, and I can provide all of the details behind the variances. They've all been identified. Looking back at our income tax year to date, just briefly, I'll mention we continue to be rising in every category, with a few minor exceptions throughout the years due to COVID most likely, but every category has gone up for the most part since 2020. So that's all I have.
Okay, that's it. Any questions from Ms. Stefan before we let her off the hook?
There was one item, South Columbus Street demo. What is
Yes.
that? I'm not familiar with that.
So the two homes that were on at the corner there,
Next to the parking
Two-
lot?
yes,
Okay.
yes, those that were demolished, that was the grant.
All right. Well, as always, great job. Thank you for the information. And if there's no other questions, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes, sir.
Second.
Second by Molly. Roll call, please.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Ms. Strayer,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
6 yeas, we are adjourned.